Welcome to the Israel Daily News Podcast. I'm your host, Shanna Fold, and I'm here to get you caught up quickly. I've got some top news stories for you today from Israel, and guess what? You're listening, so you're already on top of your game. Survive and thrive, people. Knowledge is the best weapon. Today is Thursday, September 11th, 2025 in the Gregorian calendar and the 18th of Elul in the Hebrew calendar. This is our first news program in the new residence following the ballistic missile that destroyed my home and studio on June 16th, 2025, just about 3 months ago. We had an enormous news week up until this point. Now, let's get to the news. First of all, we send our thoughts to those who were affected on 9/11 by terrorists in the United States. Jerusalem has a memorial for the attack in the Ramot neighborhood, as it's called, and there are programs going on around the country in honor of this day. We here at the Israel Daily News are thinking of all of those who feel the pain of this day some 24 years later. I have to say, as somebody who was alive during the 9/11 attacks, I think that those who weren't, talking about Gen Z, the new generation who are glorifying terrorism in some ways, reading the manifesto of Osama bin Laden, anything that's disconnected or seems disconnected from terrorism that is a serious issue around the globe. I think the reason for that is those people were not alive during 9/11, and perhaps had they been, it may have impacted their way of thinking to understand what we're dealing with today. Just a thought from my side. Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist and staunch supporter of Israel, was shot and killed while speaking at Utah Valley University. He was 31 years old. The shooting adds to mounting fears of political violence in the United States. Witnesses say Kirk was struck in the neck during a Q&A session of his American Comeback Tour and was rushed to the hospital, where his death was later confirmed. United States President Donald Trump mourned him as the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk, praising his impact on America's youth. Kirk, a co-founder of Turning Point USA, was widely known for his defense of conservative values as well as his unwavering support for Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a strong statement calling Kirk a lion-hearted friend of Israel who fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization, end quote. Netanyahu revealed he had recently invited Kirk to Israel, saying, sadly, that visit will not take place. We lost an extraordinary friend, end quote. Kirk had visited Israel with his wife in the past. Other Israeli officials, including Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, also shared their grief. Former hostage Yarden Bibas also paid tribute to Kirk, quoting him in an Instagram story in which he shared a post from Fox News. Many Israel advocates and social media stars have been commenting on Kirk's death, and I think I should too. While I find myself more progressive than Charlie Kirk and can understand why some people have found his confident attitude to be off-putting, I must say this. It is not easy to be an Israel advocate. It is not easy to even speak about Israel. It is not easy to visit Israel or live in Israel. Due to mass criticism and mass anti-Semitism, Israel and the Jewish people have become very political. So I think Jews everywhere and Israelis everywhere owe a large thank you to Charlie Kirk for dispelling anti-Israel rhetoric and false information every chance he got. And he wasn't even a Jewish person, which should raise the debt of gratitude even more. He came to this country, he saw it for himself, he had his facts and history straight, and he really took the time to learn about Israel and the ancient kingdom of Judea. That is a big deal. We here at the Israel Daily News send prayers to his wife Erica and their family in this time of deep loss. Kirk leaves behind his wife and 2 small children. Syrian government forces have captured Hezbollah cells operating near Israel in the towns of Sasa and Kanakar, 10 miles from Damascus and about 5 miles from the 1974 armistice line, which granted Israeli control of the Golan Heights. Syrian forces confiscated missile launchers, 19 Grad missiles, anti-tank missiles, and large quantities of ammunition. In July, the IDF twice raided Iranian-linked cells near the Golan, which is in Israel's north. Israel shares a border with Syria in the north. When the Assad regime was in control of Syria, many Hezbollah-linked cells operated near the Golan as part of their Golan File, so they called it. After the fall of the Assad regime, the Iranian-linked groups near the Golan were left in chaos. Hezbollah also suffered blows from Israel in the 2024 conflict, which really weakened the organization. Syria's new government has intercepted Hezbollah shipments. However, Israel demands that southern Syria be demilitarized. Syria continues to condemn what it sees as Israeli violations in the area, including IDF troop movements into areas Syria claims as Syrian soil. The following news is absolutely unprecedented. Israeli Air Force strikes targeted senior leaders of the Hamas terror group in Qatar. The IDF and Shin Bet confirmed they struck figures who had long directed Hamas operations and were behind the October 7th massacre. They say they used precision weapons and intelligence to minimize civilian casualties in Qatar. The joint statement said those struck had long directed the organization's activities and were directly responsible for the October 7th massacre and the war against Israel. The name of this latest operation is reportedly Assembly of Judgment in English. A senior Israeli official told Channel 12 News that Israel carried out a strike in Qatar with the approval of U.S. President Donald Trump. We've also seen reports saying that the U.S. was trying actually to stop this from happening, but that the word wasn't transferred quick enough. The report said the operation targeted a meeting attended by longtime Hamas leader Khaled Mashal, who survived a 1997 Israeli assassination attempt in Jordan. Arab media reports that 4 other Hamas officials were killed in that strike as well, although Hamas has said that the leaders survived. Israel stressed that the operations against Hamas will continue until the group is defeated. So just to give you a little understanding, there was a group of Hamas leadership in Qatar operating, speaking to one another, and Israel struck that site. This is the first time that Israel has struck a site in Qatar, and the idea was to remove Hamas. It wasn't necessarily against Qatar, it was more against Hamas. However, Qatar houses Hamas leaders and representatives. You're going to hear me talk about that a little bit later. I'll read to you a part of the joint announcement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz. This is a translation from Hebrew to English. In light of an operational opportunity and in consultation with all security establishment heads and with full backing, the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister decided to implement the directive that was given last night to the IDF and the ISA, which did so with precision and in an optimal manner. The Prime Minister and the Defense Minister believed that the action was fully justified, given the fact that it was this Hamas leadership that initiated and organized the October 7th massacre, and since then has not ceased from launching murderous operations against the state of Israel and its citizens, including taking responsibility for the murder of our citizens in yesterday's terrorist attack in Jerusalem. To speak more on this, let's turn to Suzan Quitaz, a Kurdish-Iraqi journalist and researcher specializing in Middle Eastern affairs. Suzan is a journalist and podcaster and presenter for an Arabic and English series called Exposing the Lies, the Voice of the Truth from the Middle East. This is at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. She has also worked as a columnist for Al-Majalla magazine and undertaken freelance assignments for Memory, Israel Hayom, and Israel Speak Arabic. Prior to her current role, she spent more than 10 years with Qatari media outlets, including Al Jazeera, where she worked on documentaries. She's done long form, short form, and we have her here with us today to talk about this unprecedented attack and what she thinks that it means for the region. Okay, and joining us is Kurdish-Iraqi journalist Suzan Quitaz, and we're very happy to have you. for you to be able to break down some of the major events that we're seeing across our region. This week has been so packed with news that the strike on Qatar, unbelievably, it's already almost out of the news cycle at this point. So, Suzanne, can you take us through the events of the Qatar strike? And is this a meaningful advancement in this war?
To start with, it was shocking. The whole Arab world woke up to this shocking news. It's unprecedented that Israel attacked Qatar, or rather, Israel attacked Hamas political headquarters in Qatar. And the hope was to eliminate Hamas leadership. We still don't know if the most senior Hamas leaders have been eliminated in this strike or not. But the Qatari official reaction, it was expected. They condemned the attack. They very angry, and the attack has drawn a lot of condemnation from the rest of Arab world, including United Arab Emirates, which is an ally to Israel, and of course the American. For me, I read this strike. It has two clear messages. One, the Israeli government message to Hamas leadership that we are going to strike you wherever you are. And the second message is to the Qatari government and indirectly to the rest of the Arab world. You cannot continue harbor terrorist organization and evade justice. So we really need to understand that the strike wasn't aimed at Qatar itself as a state, but rather, targeting Hamas terrorists.
Okay, thank you for breaking that down for us. Do you think that Israel is going to see backlash for this strike?
Short term, yes, but long term, no. And if I take you through like the Arab media, and I think it's really important, Arab have went to social media and expressed their opinion. A lot of people are happy, and surprisingly, even activists from Gaza and Palestinian journalists have said we are not going to shed a single tears if these Hamas officials have been killed or not. And that is a show from Gaza to show that people are immensely suffering, but they start waking up that they're suffering. Hamas bear the full responsibility. And so this is like the Palestinian side and the Gazan side. And then you have the Arabs from across the region. They are very happy, especially people in Iraq, because Qatar has been accused for harboring, funding, and militant jihadi across the region, especially in Iraq. Following the fall of Saddam Hussein, Iraq saw some of the most horrific terror attack against innocent civilians. And most these jihadi organizations, they were funded by Qatar. This is a fact. This is not an opinion. So when I went on social media, on Iraqi social media, I could see a lot of Iraqi baking a bread, and some of the bread with a Star of David saying, Shalom, Shalom, Qatar. It's time you taste the same medicine we have tasted. And then if I go to the Kurdish region, specifically to the northeast Syria, Rojava, where a lot of Kurd, and I'm talking about, like influential media figures, have said that curse on you, Qatar. Now you'll taste the same medicine we have tasted. And they're referring that Qatar has backed and funded Turkish and Arab militia who went to Kurdish villages, especially Afrin, committing horrific attack against Kurdish civilian. And let's not forget that Qatar, Red Cross, with the Qatari government, they have built more than 12 settlements in the Kurdish region in Syria, housing Arab, and as a result, forcing the Kurdish population to flee.
Forcing the Kurdish population to what?
To flee, to go somewhere else because they rehousing these Arab people. And the whole thing is political theatrical. What do I mean by that? If we go back a few years ago to the Qatar blockade, we had a number of Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and Egypt. They all cut their ties with Qatar, specifically saying that Qatar keep interfering with their internal affair, and that Qatar harboring terrorist organization. So Qatar shouldn't be surprised, what Netanyahu had to do. And a lot of people who are, especially in the West, have condemned the IDF strike on Doha, saying this will risk the hostages deal. What hostages deal are we talking about? These hostages, they have been in Gaza for almost 2 years, and Hamas is doing everything to drag these negotiations. Hamas, and I'm really sorry, Hamas doesn't give a damn in the hostages and doesn't give a damn in the Gaza and their suffering.
I'm glad that you went there because I wanted to actually ask, how do you think it's possible that the world is trusting and waiting for news from Qatari negotiators about a Hamas-Israel deal to
I mean,
release hostages while knowingly housing Hamas political heads? How is that possible?
well, we live in a world that suffer from double standard and hypocrisy, where the victim, and now I'm talking about the victim of October 7, they've been ignored, and the perpetrator who committed those horrific crime on the October 7, across the whole world, people are going out in support of Hamas, forgetting that what we're seeing in Gaza, it's a direct result of what Hamas did in October the 7th. People seems to forget that the ongoing war, it's a war Israel didn't want. It was imposed on Israel. And I personally don't understand how could people see that Qatar's role as an honest broker. First, they go out and they say we helping to release these hostages, and at the same time, they have the entire terrorist leadership of Hamas sitting in Doha and living a life of luxury. But one thing for me, I think significant with this attack, it will put now pressure on. So the Qatari government, they will pressure Hamas leadership to agree to a deal because they don't want further attack on Doha.
Okay, understood. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any final remarks that you'd like to make about the changes that we're seeing, about the strike on Qatar? And if you want to share any of your thoughts about what can come out in the future negotiation, I just want to share that for the listeners of the Israel Daily News, I have been very cautious not to share too much news about developments in the hostage deal because I don't believe that this deal is being negotiated in good faith. I also don't believe that the negotiations are really psychologically healthy for the Israeli public and the Jewish world and anyone who's concerned about hostages or Gazan civilians. I don't think it's healthy for people to be on the line like this. There's a change, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe it's going to happen. Every so frequently, I've been very cautious to share only major updates in the hostage deal because I don't believe it until the fat lady sings. And that's when I want to give the report. However, if you have an analysis or a commentary or some insights, now would be a great time for you to share them.
Unfortunately, I share the same view as yours to 100%. I don't think these negotiations are done in a good faith. These hostages are Hamas insurance for continued survival. And I find it extremely upsetting, and I'm not an Israeli and I'm not Jewish myself, extremely upsetting that from like every few days they gave these negotiations give hopes to the hostage family that a hostage deal is going to happen. They've been dragging it for far too long. 2 years, it's a very long time for someone who's waiting for their loved one to come back alive or to bury them and, put them to rest. So for me, I think this attack was very good because that shows that Israel is very serious about it. That we are not going to allow a terrorist organization to dictate the rule. You either sit and have a proper negotiation and end this, or let's call off this charade. I just hope that the hostages will come back home very soon. I have met 2 hostage family, and I cannot even imagine. I cannot honestly imagine the pain they're going through. So I really hope that they will be back home very soon.
I think that deserves a big amen, and I agree with you entirely. The Israeli public, you, others who are engaged in this conflict and care, and the Jewish world, we're all waiting, we're all holding our breath, quite literally. I've been told so many times by friends, Shanna, you're not breathing, you're breathing so shallow, you need to really breathe. And I think that that is just totally a subconscious experience that so many people are having, which is that we're holding our breaths for this to be over, for a deal to be reached, or to see our community come home. And thank you for sharing your thoughts and for sharing in that sentiment in general, and explaining to us what we can expect in this unprecedented strike.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And now for some impactful stories from earlier this week, stories that really shocked the nation. Early Monday morning, 4 Israeli soldiers were killed in a Hamas attack on an army post near Gaza City. The IDF announced that all 4 of the troops have been identified. That includes Staff Sergeant Ori Lamed, 20 years old, from Tel Mond, Sergeant Amit Aryeh Regev, 19, from Modi'in, and Sergeant Gadi Kotal, 20, from Kibbutz Afikim, and Lieutenant Matan Abramowitz of Ganei Tikva. All served in the 52nd Battalion of the 401st Armored Brigade. The attack also left a Nachal Brigade soldier from the 50th Battalion moderately wounded. According to an initial IDF investigation, 3 or 4 Hamas operatives struck the army encampment in the Kafar Jabalia area around 6 a.m. shortly after troops returned from an overnight operation. The attackers reportedly targeted a tank, opening fire at the commander as he leaned out of the vehicle's hatch before throwing an explosive inside, killing the 4 soldiers. Soldiers stationed at the outpost returned fire at the assailants as they fled, though it remains unclear if any of them were hit. We here at the Israel Daily News send our heartfelt condolences to the families, friends, and communities affected by this news and losing such young ones. And for a news story that rocked the nation, 6 people were murdered and 12 were seriously injured in a deadly terror attack in Jerusalem on Monday when a pair of Palestinian terrorists opened fire on buses and crosswalks in Jerusalem's Ramot Junction. The terrorists, residents of the West Bank, arrived around 10 a.m. A soldier and civilians who were present immediately killed them with their guns. The soldier who jumped in is actually a member of the IDF's Hasmonean Brigade, the IDF's new unit for Orthodox Jews. So people have been talking about how useful and how advanced it is that more Orthodox members of society here are learning how to shoot and are joining the IDF because this young man was a hero on this week. Prime Minister Netanyahu later arrived on scene to survey the situation and told reporters that, quote, a mighty war against terror is taking place on all fronts, end quote. According to Palestinian media, the 2 perpetrators of the Jerusalem attack are from the nearby village of Katana. One was a student at Birzeit University near Ramallah, and Israeli forces have reportedly arrested his father in the past hours after the attack. Israel has not yet confirmed those details. Let's share a few words about each of the victims. Let's shift the focus here. Rabbi Yosef David, 43 years old, a Torah scholar and prayer instructor at a Haredi or Orthodox elementary school. He was killed while waiting for the bus, clutching his books. His family remembered him and remembers him as a devout man with a constant smile. He leaves behind a wife and 4 children. Rabbi Israel Matzner, 28 years old, a father of 3 who studied at Hebron Yeshiva and later at the Me'asharim Kollel, which is a place of religious study. That's what a Kollel is. Colleagues described him as gentle, wise, and full of Torah. He is survived by his wife, children, and parents. Sarita Mendelsohn, 60 years old, known as the mother of B'nai Akiva, where she worked for decades in national leadership. She was born in Argentina and immigrated to Israel at the age of 7. Friends say she was always smiling and giving. She leaves behind her husband, 4 children, and grandchildren. Levi Yitzchak Pash was 57. He was a maintenance worker at Yeshivat Kol Torah and a well-known figure in his neighborhood. He was remembered for his good deeds, generosity, and Torah study. He leaves behind his father, his wife, and 6 children. Yaakov Pinto, 25. A recent immigrant from Spain, married just 2 months ago. He studied at Derech Emunah Yeshiva and worked as a counselor at Hedzvat HaTorah High School. His wedding was held without family present due to the June war with Iran. He is survived by his parents and wife. Rabbi Mordechai Mark Steinsag, 79 years old, a former American cardiologist who founded Dr. Mark's Bakery in Beit Shemesh. After moving to Israel in 1993, he combined medical knowledge and a love for healthy living to popularize nutritious bread. His bakery described him as a man who embodied warmth, health, and giving. We here at the Israel Daily News send our heartfelt condolences to the families, the friends, the communities, the nation that mourn these civilians, these 6 civilians that were senselessly killed on their way to study, learn, and do good for the community and the world. On Friday, September 5th, Israel marked 700 days of war with 48 hostages still in captivity. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum produced an emergency video in which members and representatives of the forum spelled SOS along with the shape of an hourglass, indicating that the hostages' time is running out. Protests, rallies, and other activities were held to mark this somber occasion. The forum also marked the 700 days with a prayer service to welcome in the Sabbath. It was the 101st Kabbalat Shabbat prayer service held at Hostage Square. Kabbalat Shabbat are the welcoming songs that Jews sing to welcome the Sabbath, and it happens on Friday evenings as the sun goes down. Again, that was the 101st Kabbalat Shabbat prayer service held at Hostage Square. Hamas released a video Friday showing 2 Israeli hostages being driven through Gaza City. The footage features 24-year-old hostage Guy Gilboa Dalal inside a car, passing damaged buildings and recognizable sites, including the Red Crescent headquarters. Toward the end of the clip, Gilboa Dalal reunites with fellow hostage Alon Ohel, also 24, and the 2 embrace invisible shock. Gilboa Dalal, speaking under clear duress, states the date as August 28th and notes that he'd been held for 22 months. The video is unusual in that it shows hostages above ground rather than in captivity conditions like we've seen in previous videos. The hostages and missing families said in a statement on Friday that the IDF has no precise whereabouts of the hostages and that the incoming Gaza operation could lead to the captives' murder and eternal disappearance in the Gaza Strip's ruins. A Houthi drone launched from Yemen struck the passenger terminal at Ramon Airport near Eilat on Sunday, lately injuring 1 man with shrapnel and causing several others to suffer panic attacks as travelers ran for cover. The Israeli military admitted that the drone had been detected but was mistakenly not classified as a threat, allowing it to evade defenses, even as 3 other drones were intercepted near the Egyptian border just minutes earlier. Footage from the scene showed smoke, shattered glass, and debris inside the terminal. Airspace over Eilat was briefly closed, halting takeoffs and landings, but operations did resume after safety checks. The attack is part of an escalating wave of Houthi drone and missile strikes on Israel following the assassination of the terror group's prime minister in Yemen. The Ramon Airport, named after Israel's first astronaut Ilan Ramon, opened in 2019 in the southern Negev desert to replace the previous airports with the capacity to serve up to 4 million passengers annually, including domestic flights from Tel Aviv, Haifa, and low-cost European airlines. It was a big deal when this airport was opened because there's really only an airport in Tel Aviv that services the whole country, and having that airport down south was a game changer for this country. Today's news is powered by our partner Bernie News Network, or BNN. For fast and precise updates, join BNN on WhatsApp and Telegram at their website, bernie.news. I want to thank all of you for your interest in Israeli affairs, Israeli politics, our world politics. I also want to thank all of you who personally finance and fund the Israel Daily News podcast with monthly contributions. You can support us with contributions by going to our website, israeldailynews.org, and clicking on sponsor. The Patreon link is over there, and you can send us a monthly sponsorship/donation using the Patreon link. There's also an option for a one-time donation. Our organization is operational thanks to listeners and supporters like you. Thank you to Marianne Vollinger for her monthly support. In response for your contributions, I'll send over a handwritten thank you note to show my appreciation. Follow us on social media at israeldaily.news. We're on X, YouTube, TikTok, and on Instagram. Our page is about to hit 40,000 followers. You can also follow my personal page at Shanna Fold. My name has 2 N's in it, and I'm very sensitive about that. This morning, I spoke to a group of international journalists to share my story of my home being blown up by the Iranian attacks in June. I'll share some media on my personal platform from that experience dealing with journalists and telling my story. It was the first time I've done something like that to a group, about a dozen of foreign journalists. So I'll be sharing a little bit about that on my personal platform. U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that Elizabeth Surkov, an Israeli-Russian Princeton PhD student held hostage in Iraq for 2 years, has been freed. Likely entering Iraq on her Russian passport as part of her academic research, Surkov had previously traveled to the country and other countries in that region. Trump wrote on Truth Social, his social media platform, "I am pleased to report that Elizabeth Surkov, whose sister is an American citizen, has been released by Kataib Hezbollah and is now safe at the U.S. Embassy in Iraq after months of torture. I will always fight for justice and never give up. Hamas, release the hostages now." Normally, the U.S. would not be able to manage a negotiation for a non-citizen. You may have noticed that I referred to Surkov as a Russian Israeli, but this was a special case because Surkov was doing research for the American institution Princeton, and her sister is an American green card holder. The Times of Israel news here in Israel reports the family wanted Surkov to be flown into the U.S. directly, but the Prime Minister's office here in Israel requested that she be brought to Israel and admitted to the Sheba Medical Center, which is a similar process that other hostages who were being kept captive in Gaza have gone through. Olive oil production was a key economic driver for the ancient kingdom of Israel. I have a fun story for you now to try to leave us off on a good note. The Israel Antiquities Authority revealed through excavations a fortified Iron Age olive oil center, which along with other similar sites contributed significantly to the region's economy in the 8th century BCE. The sites, likely part of a royal initiative, were strategically located in southern Samaria and were heavily fortified, suggesting central control. Archaeologist David Atam's analysis of the Beit Arya site, once known as Kirbat Kudash, estimated that the production of 11,340 liters of olive oil annually highlights the site's economic importance. Though there's no direct evidence that links the site to a royal family, their planned nature and fortifications indicate that there was some royal oversight. The olive oil centers were likely abandoned after the Assyrian invasion of 721 BCE, marking a decline in this critical economic industry. I love archaeological stories, don't you? And now for a Torah thought by Rabbi Yossi Madvig of Oswego, New York.
This week's Torah portion is called Ki Tavo, when you come into the land of Israel, and it mentions various mitzvot, various commandments that you're supposed to do that are contingent upon coming into the land of Israel. One of the first things that it mentions is the mitzvah of bikurim, bringing the first fruits to the temple, to the priests, in order that you should thank God for the bounty which he's bestowed upon you. Now, that's very nice, but what does that have to do with us in 2025? We don't have a temple. Most of us don't have fruits that we have. We don't have pomegranate trees in our backyard, and even if we did, there's no temple to bring it to. So how can we attach ourselves? How can we relate to this mitzvah? Well, there is a very famous teaching in Hasidic philosophy, and I think it's even not in Hasidic philosophy, of that we're giving the Bikurim, we're giving our first fruits, the best that we have, the best of our energy and our time to God, to spirituality. And the first thing that a Jew does when they wake up, before they stretch, before they wash their face, before anything, is we say, Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam shechazarta binishmati b'chemlo rabba emunatecha. We say, thank you, God, for returning my soul to me, for giving me my life in order that I should serve you. That's the very first thing that we do. And so we're giving the very first moments of our waking hours, we're giving to God. And then after that, we say various blessings on having clothes and having life, and that we have what to eat. Everything that we have, that God gives us, we're giving to God. And we begin our day with prayer and learning. And so something that we should do as we're preparing for Rosh Hashanah, and this is also a very special week. I'm assuming that the podcast is going to drop on Thursday. And this Thursday, today, if you're listening on Thursday, is the 18th of the month of Elul, Chai Elul, which is the birthday of both the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, and Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad movement. And it's also the first of the 12 last days of the month of Elul. As I mentioned before, we're preparing ourselves this month for the upcoming new year to rectify anything that we've done wrong in the past and to commit to do better for the future, for the upcoming new year. And being that it's the last 12 days of the month, each day represents a month of the year. And so Thursday, we are rectifying everything that happened in the first month. And the second, on the 19th, on Friday, we're rectifying everything that happened that we did wrong in the second month, and so on and so forth as we prepare ourselves. So this is something very practical that we can do. It's important, especially during this time, when you first get up, the very first of your time and your energy, give to God in some way. Say a prayer, give charity, learn something inspirational. And with this, we'll be able to prepare ourselves in the best way for an upcoming new year, where we should have a ketiva v'chatima tova l'shana tova matuka, that we should be written and sealed for a good and sweet new year. Shabbat shalom.
All right. Well, that is it for today's show. Today is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Tel Aviv has a low of 24 degrees Celsius and a high of 29 degrees. That's 75 degrees Fahrenheit for the low, going up to 84 degrees for the high. We are everywhere. Don't forget to sign up to our Israel Weekly News Wrap. The Israel Weekly News Wrap is a newsletter with the top 5 stories coming out of Israel from throughout the week, and of course with a personal note from me at the top. You can sign up for that at israeldailynews.org. I'll send you off with a song called Hayati by Ariel Zeitlin, a talented Israeli-American violinist. Enjoy her song and have a great and productive day and an excellent weekend. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.